Welcome to the March meeting of New York City Transit, MAB STOA, and Staten Island Rapid Transit. Do we have any public speakers?
We do, Mr. Chairman. We have one public speaker, and that is Murray Bowden.
Mr. Bowden.
Good morning. Welcome to the new MTA. Whether you've noticed it or not, the MTA has changed dramatically for the better. Led, of course, by out front the tag team of Carmine and Tom with your repairing the tracks leadership. Last I didn't want to speak if you were busy doing something else, Mark.
I'm all ears.
Good. Because that's important. Because when all of you sit there with your iPads in front of you, you need to pay attention to whoever is speaking or whatever the program is. And I do expect all of you to show up here one of these days with your iPads, because we're moving to an electronic age. And it has to happen. Last week we were in Florida with our grandchildren, and we went to the Yankee game, and this is empty, by the way. We went to the Yankee game, and I saw this beer container for the first time. It turns out to be aluminum. And why is that important? It's symbolic of the change in the way beer is distributed at Yankee games. We sat in the fifth row right behind first base, about as far from Rodriguez and everybody else as you are from me. It's wonderful. $31, cheap. This is easy to recycle. It weighs less. They can pass it out in the ballpark. You get the container. It doesn't break. It's symbolic of the changes that are going on around here. And if you haven't paid attention, time to pay attention. This is not the same MTA as it was a year ago. And some of you are having trouble realizing that things have to be done differently. Well, they are being done differently. Tom, you've started it. You've shown the way that it can be done. And slowly in each of the other things, it's happening. Now, I know it's difficult for some people to deal with electronic distribution of board materials. So you've got three choices. One, you can learn how to do it. Two, you can get some 16-year-old kid to help you. And three, get off the board. Make room for the next generation. It is very difficult for some people in my generation to give up control. It's time to give up control to the next generation.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden.
The minutes of the February meeting are attached to the book. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. All in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Are there any changes to the work plan?
No, Mr. Chairman.
It is now my honor and pleasure to introduce President Thomas Prendergast.
Good morning. I will be giving the operations report this morning. Joe Leader is sitting in for Carmen Bianco. He has a significant illness in the family. That's why he's not here today. Subway performance indicators for the month of January and the 12-month average where appropriate are as follows. The subway weight assessment, 12-month rolling average for system-wide sub-day weekday weight assessment was 78.8% in January 2012, which represents an improvement of 0.8 percentage points from 78% in the January of the prior year. Terminal on-time performance for January was as follows. System-wide weekday on-time performance was 85.5%, an improvement of 2 percentage points from 83.5%. And system-wide weekend on-time performance was 89.2, a decrease of 3.1 percentage points from 92.3 in January of the prior year. As in December, the majority of the improvements in system-wide weekday on-time performance were due to the mild weather experienced this past January as compared to January of 2011. There was only one activation of a cold weather plan 4, which is when there is a forecast of 5 or more inches of snow, and that was called in January of 2012 as compared to 8 in the prior year. It should be noted that even though weekend on-time performance fell 3.1 percentage points, weekend weight assessment on the IRT decreased by less than 1% due to delay management strategies designed to minimize impacts on customers. In other words, we're paying more attention to the regularity of service more than the terminal on-time performance. It's a conscious decision we've made. Several very significant events that resulted in 200-plus delays each contributed to the low weekday on-time performance on the 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines. A person struck and killed by a train at Borough Hall during the PM rush on Thursday, January 19th. A suspicious package at Chambers Street during the PM rush on Wednesday, January 11th. A discarded umbrella on the Lexington Avenue Express tracks made contact with the third rail and caused a fire and smoke condition at Union Square during the AM rush on January 5th. And multiple track circuit failures at 96th Street in the Bronx during the AM rush, and in the Bronx during the AM rush and midday on Wednesday, January 4th. The year-over-year decline in system-wide on-time performance was primarily due, weekend on-time performance was due primarily to significant increases in maintenance and capital construction activities affecting the 1, 2, 5, NRM, and F lines on most weekends. In terms of MDBF, it decreased in the month of January at 174,687 miles, 9.7% decrease from the same period a year before. The 12-month average was 171,314, basically unchanged from the same period the prior year at 171,431. Moving to key performance indicators, system-wide KPI was 82.9%, up 1% from 81.9% in January 2011. System-wide passenger environment survey was 90.8%, down 1.1% from 91.9% in January of 2011. And for Staten Island Railway, the service KPI was not reported. SIR's PES KPI was 85.1, down 4.2% from 89.3 in January. Fast Track, we successfully completed our third and fourth installments of the first quarter's Fast Track program on the 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue lines, respectively. This completes our first cycle of quarterly activity in 2012. Transit employees inspected signals, replaced rails and ties, scraped roadbeds, cleaned stations and painted areas they could not reach during normal train operation. We took the opportunity to also clean light fixtures, change bulbs, and repair platform edges because there were no train service running and we didn't have to have general orders. Our next Fast Track overnight closure begins Monday, April 9th on the 7th Avenue line between 34th Street, Penn Station, and Atlantic Avenue, and South Ferry. We are going to report monthly at our normal report with a specific report on overtime, as all the operating agencies are, and that's specifically a request of MTA. In 2011, Department of Subways' adopted budget for non-reimbursable, unscheduled, and scheduled overtime was $115 million, or 4.4% of our $2.6 billion non-reimbursable budget. Actual overtime expenditures were $138 million, which exceeded the overtime budget by approximately $23 million, or 20%. This overrun is less than 1% of Subway's total non-reimbursable operating budget, and we're still well below standard norms for overtime for agencies like ours. The major factors driving the overrun were the cost of additional coverage to manage the extreme winter weather in early 2011 and Hurricane Irene in August. Critical maintenance activities, mostly the reduction of signal maintenance and inspection backlogs, and covering service delivery vacancies so as not to impact service. Our overtime results in January of 2012 exceeded budget by approximately $4 million. Half of this amount was paid out in January for work done in the prior year by employees who opted to exercise the overtime cash-out program. That is a collective bargaining agreement where they can pool their overtime earnings in the year and receive a lump sum payment for it in January of the following year. So $2 million of that money was paid out that way. Another $1 million was spent by the Signals Division for a combination of winter weather-related maintenance and activity to further reduce the maintenance and inspection backlogs that we've had historically in the Signals area. The Fast Track program used approximately $600,000 for the Lexington Avenue line closure in January, which was our first line closure program, and we will continue to incur overtime costs because we believe that's a solid way to be able to get as much productivity as possible, because we work some employees through lunch and pay overtime for it, and direct reporting to work locations so they don't have to have any deadhead time. We're expecting that number to fall, though, as we get better experience and have it more be in the range of $350,000 during future closings. Overall, however, the financial impact of Fast Track is expected to result in a net savings, both in terms of productivity and cost, and safety as well. The balance of January overtime overrun was mostly in elevator and escalator and in station environment operations. As you know, we rely on overtime to maintain a consistent level of quality service for our customers. We believe it's a wise expenditure of resources when we can get better productivity out of our employees. We balance this practice with proactive overtime management to monitor and contain usage and control abuses. Vacancies that are filled in overtime to avoid service impacts, station agents, conductors, and train operators will be monitored closely, and aggressive hiring plans that were put in place in mid-2011 to make sure we have backfills for those vacancies will continue. Work processes are being reviewed and modified in order to achieve greater productivity from the workforce on regularly scheduled tours. That's it for the operations report.
Everybody get all that, or are there some questions? Andrew?
There's no doubt that Fast Track is good in many departments, and you're getting a lot of work done, and you're probably going to save money in the end. But when the program was first announced, we were told no line was going to get it more than maybe that's every quarter or something like that. And here you are back on the 1, 2, 3 again.
It's the second quarter, and we're not necessarily going to follow the same sequence. So every 3 months, we're going to hit one of those 4 lines in Manhattan. It just so happens that the time between when we did the line closure on the 7th Avenue line and again is shorter.
Very short.
On the Lex line, it's actually much longer.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
it has to do with when we can sequence the work and as best we can do. And we will make changes to this program as we go forward.
Are you going to make
right now,
sure this time that riders on the Upper Lenox line continue to get their service since none work is being done up there?
We'll make sure the work is being done, but some of the questions you asked about in terms of running a shuttle we couldn't do, and we can't turn 3 services at 42nd Street.
Why can't you? A shuttle ran between 148th and Lenox and 135th and Lenox for years overnight. Years.
We'll take a look at it, but not in today's times. We can't do it. So we'll take a look at it.
It's not like you're running the 2 that much more often than you were years ago that it's going to interfere with it. So why should those folks, who haven't had transit service for years overnight, while we were running transit service to marshlands in the Rockaways where nobody lived, and hundreds of thousands of people live there, why should they have to change to a bus when they're not getting the benefit of the Fast Track work?
Well, the benefit of a rail shuttle in large part is not only the ability to turn the trains, but the ability to have scheduled meets. Because if you bring people to a platform and they stand and wait, that isn't good either.
Sure.
So we'll take a look at it and we'll see. And as I said, we will continue to make refinements to the program where we see needs require that to be done.
All right, Chuck?
Tom, I congratulate
Sorry, Commissioner Murdoch.
I congratulate you on Fast Track. I have one question on it. Have you yet had sufficient experience with it to determine how often you have to go back, what impact it will have on right-of-way delays, and how much you can mitigate that?
No. The decision to go to Fast Track and actually have line closures was predicated on a continuing buildup of backlog work on the maintenance and inspection side across all the disciplines, but signals was probably one of the largest. And so that was what drove the original decision to go to Fast Track and have the line closures. We know we have more than enough work to be able to have to go to each one of those 4 lines each quarter this year. But at the end of this year, based upon what the results of the work are, we're going to reassess as to what the frequency is. There's also been a dialogue, you've seen it in the press, about possibly going to other places and getting outside of the downtown area, getting outside of Manhattan, and reap some of the same benefits. The problems that we're going to have to address there, though, is there's less redundancy of service. But certainly we're going to fine-tune the amount of outages based upon how much work we have to have done. It's not our intent to just automatically have a line closure if we don't have work to be done.
One of the thoughts I thought you had in initiating this program was that it would mitigate the right-of-way delays that now exist and have existed for some time. Do you have any information that that has in fact occurred or is likely to occur?
It's too early to tell because the number of backlog defects that we've been able to run down isn't complete yet. But it's one we're going to monitor as we go throughout the year and have the program in place. We expect to come to this committee in May with a summary of what our first quarter's findings are in terms of what worked, what didn't work, and actually show you the breadth and depth of the work we're doing because we're getting upwards of 800-900 people on the right-of-way a night doing an awful lot of work. And some of it you see from a platform, but there's a large part of it you don't see. That's why I want to show it to you. But the idea is to continually monitor the progress and see, but it's too early to tell right now, Chuck.
If there's any way that you can give us some idea as to whether or not we can, through this kind of a program, mitigate right-of-way delays, which are the single largest cause for delay, from what I've seen from your statistics, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely.
May I ask you one other question? Wearing my parochial hat from the Bronx, together with Borough President Ferrer.
Are you from the Bronx?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mr. Price never let me return it. If you look at page 3.8 and the preceding page, you see again that the trains originating in the Bronx and culminating in the Bronx continue to have pretty much the worst service in the system. Is there anything that can be done about it, or is it just inherent in that line?
Well, they start and finish in both the Bronx and in Brooklyn, but and these numbers are across the entire line, so they're performance numbers. But historically, some of the amount of work that we've got going on in the IRT, the numbered lines, are such that the performance has been less. We also have much more accurate reporting in the IRT because this is all ATS driven, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it, Joe? So, but it's not our it's not our intent to just accept these standards of performance. We want to improve them and get closer to the numbers that we're seeing in the other lines in the system.
Because what you're seeing here is 3/4 of the trains, or more, are on time, but 1/4 of them are just not. The weight assessment in 1/4 of the instances is increased beyond the standard.
It's hovering around between 75 and 80, yes, and we'd like to get the number into the 80s. Absolutely.
It's not a Bronx.
But it's not a Bronx.
It's not a Bronx issue, Chuck. It's the
across
2, the
entire
4,
line.
and the 5, which go to three or four boroughs. So it's.
Sir, we have been ignored in the Bronx too long, and we are not going to be.
If there's no further cross-examination, would you like to recognize Cheryl Kennedy? Or
Sure. Actually, I have one.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Yeah, just on the J and the Z and the R42 equipment used on that. That's the worst performing equipment we have. In fact, it's pretty low. I know it's only 50 cars, but is anything going to be done to increase the performance of the R42 equipment until we get new equipment?
The intent, you really don't make investments on vehicles that you're going to retire. And we've got a procurement for action today in terms of the 179s to replace those, as well as the 32s, if I'm not mistaken. And the sooner we can get those cars replaced, the much better off we'll be. But to put money into trying to improve the MDBF on those cars would truly be good money after bad.
So there's no easy thing to do with them, or
No.
because it's very low. It just happened. Okay.
You just wait for a train of R160 equipment if you're on the J or Z.
You take a different train.
If you will suffer me with one more question. If you will turn to page 3.23, the appearance of the stations in the Bronx seems to have declined, notwithstanding the fact that you have done a fair amount of work in trying to improve that situation. What's up?
Declined by 0.2%, which I would honestly think is...
No, the amount of time and effort you've spent on improvement has been significant, and I congratulate you for it. I'm trying to figure out, is there something that is causing this?
I'd like to take
showing improvement.
I'd like to take you out and show you how this survey is done, because while we've tried to make it as objective as possible, there's still a large degree of subjectivity to the survey.
Sold.
But I'll take you out. And that's why I'd say a 0.2% difference is almost indistinguishable given the nature of the survey. But we still would like to improve it.
All right, Cheryl Kennedy.
Okay. Safety results were as follows. The subway customer accident rate decreased by 6.2% for the 12-month period. In the month of December, the accident rate decreased by 35%, moving to 2.69 per million subway customers from a rate of 4.14 last year. The employee lost time accident rate decreased 32.7% for the month of January 2012 versus January 2011. The rolling 12-month rate also decreased by 0.9 over the previous 12-month period. There were 58 confirmed fires for the month of January, down 46.8% from the previous year. Additionally, fires decreased over the last 12-month period by 12.1%. 100% of all fires were categorized as being low or average in severity for the month of January. I'd also like to bring to your attention that included in this month is Section 6 in your book, is NYCT's annual safety report, which provides an overview of key safety indicators including employee and customer injury rates from 2011 compared to the previous year.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any questions for Cheryl? Chuck?
I can't point to the paper, but I noticed in one of these pages that there were a fair number of people who have gotten hit by trains.
Yes.
My question was, has any thought ever been given, assuming the day comes when we have some money, to installing the doors that they have on the metro and the like to stop people falling off the track?
I'd like to respond to the overall question and that specific question. Although our customer accident rate is down, the category of train and persons is one, even as the article in today's paper noted, is up. And it's a concern to us. Now, a certain percentage of those are suicides, and it's arguable as to what we can do, but platform doors could possibly address that. The remainder are sometimes the result of a crime, an assault, or they're a result of somebody who is inebriated or faints on the platform. When I came to the Transit Authority in 1982, we would kill multiple people crossing between cars. They'd slip and fall. And we actually went out with a very aggressive campaign letting people know what the inherent hazards are crossing between cars, because some people didn't realize how dangerous it was. And we actually had a marked decrease in the number of between-car fatalities in the next 2 years, from what I recall. We need to do an aggressive marketing campaign and customer education campaign in terms of to stay away from the platform edge and actually, wait for the train to pull into the station before you stick your head out and look to see which way, it's coming. Because some of these incidents are nothing more, although serious, of them walking into the side of a train or looking in the wrong direction and getting hit by a train when they're on the platform. I believe, what was the number, Cheryl? 43%.
About 41% of them last year were people struck on the platform. So they either walked into the side of the train, they were running, and they weren't paying attention, and they got hit while they were on the platform.
Now, I want to go to the last issue, which is platform doors. Like, a lot of people will roll their eyes and say, that's pretty costly, and how would you do it? Even older systems like Paris, Line 14 was automated from day one. It was built automated, but Line 1 was the first line they built back probably in the 19th century, and they've automated that line. But most systems are now putting in platform doors, and you don't just do it for safety. You do it for passenger comfort, because then you can cool the station or air cool it. The other reason is for dwell time at a station. In some stations, like the Lex line, the entire headway is predicated by how fast we can get a train into the station, get people off the train, get people on the train, close the doors, and get it out at Grand Central. The entire Lex line is predicated on dwell time at Grand Central. And as we bring more people into Grand Central, we're going to be faced with a number of situations with respect to not only passenger safety on the platform, but the ability to disembark and load people and get the train out. So Carmen and I are committed to looking at a way of how would you do that, and how would you start it, and how would you implement it. The original system, most people don't know, it was built without covered third rail, but you put covered third rail on it over time. So it's something we do need to take a look at, especially for high-volume stations.
We really learn something new every day, don't we? I didn't know that, did you?
Is it possible, Tom, to take a look at what it would cost us to do it, and is it possible to take a look at what it would cost us to do it, and what stations would be the best target for a pilot program? The French system clearly is a plus. The Paris Metro system is clearly a plus for passenger loading.
London did it in the Jubilee line as well.
Right.
So actually, we've had a dialogue with MTA CC about taking a look at, one of their stations, maybe on the 7 West, and taking a look at possibly doing it under new construction, because it's a lot easier doing it there than it would be on a retrofit. But there's been an ongoing dialogue in terms of how to go about doing it, but we've not made any policy decision at this point in time.
All right, we will now turn to crime, and we recognize 4-star General Stanley McChrystal. Oh no, Chief Joseph Fox. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Is this mic okay? Okay, members of the board, good morning. When I last addressed the board, I spoke about the increase in number of thefts of electronic devices that occurred the first half of 2011. I noted that although there was still more of these crimes when compared to a year ago, in the second half of 2011 we started to turn a corner and slow the rate of increase. This is still the case, and more recently, the total number of major crimes every month has been relatively consistent. There were 236 major crimes last November, 243 in December, 248 in January, and 224 this last February. It's still early in the year, and we expect having success with our various crime-fighting initiatives, and we saw some impressive results in the last few weeks, and more on that in a bit. First, I'd like to talk again about awareness. This past week, we saw the unveiling of another sought-after electronic device, the new iPad. According to media reports, 3 million devices were sold within the first days of its launching. You've all heard this before, but it remains important that the vulnerability of riders displaying these expensive items becomes common knowledge. This is why, as part of this report, I must again highlight the importance of passenger awareness while using these devices on the trains. We're diligently working towards increasing passenger awareness of this type of theft. We're doing public service announcements, awareness handouts, crime prevention initiatives, phone tracking apps, and increased uniform visibility. These are just a few of our tactics employed. Along with the increased effort to make passengers aware of these vulnerabilities, officers assigned to the NYPD Transit Bureau have significantly stepped up their enforcement efforts. Year to date, we have increased by 7%, or 761 arrests, and fare evasion summonses have increased by 10% to over 1,600. During the week of March 5th, Transit Bureau officers effected over 1,445 arrests and had over 6,400 enforcement contacts, including 32 knives removed that week alone. This was done as part of our Operation Toolbox, which utilizes every available officer and resource. Another result of that operation was 354 wanted persons were apprehended. Team-led operations such as Toolbox will continue on a regular basis. It's the way we're going to go in 2012. In fact, we're conducting another Toolbox operation this week. It started midnight this morning. Incidentally, during that week of March 5th when we did that Toolbox, there were 27 index crimes, one of our lowest weeks ever recorded. The 243 officers, Police Commissioner Kelly, assigned to the Transit Bureau on December 31st, 2011, continue their impressive contributions to the crime reduction efforts in our subway system. Each officer averaging 7.5 arrests per officer and 12 summonses. They're continuing to, and we're continuing to allocate additional overtime for crime suppression. In February, we deployed an average of 56 teams of 1 sergeant and 5 police officers per week. We're also continuing our 4-hour tour extensions with an average of 64 officers per day, Monday through Friday and on weekends, assigned to platforms, giving us more of a uniform presence. The theft of electronics in the transit system has often occurred when the criminals snatch devices out of the hands of riders sitting near the train doors. In recent weeks, though, we've seen a shift in the methods employed by the thieves. More often, they've been stealing electronics from passengers who are sleeping on the train. For example, during 2011, 17% of all our grand larcenies were from sleeping passengers. But in the last 28 days, we've seen this method of theft increase to 32% of all of our grand larcenies, while the handheld snatch method decreased to 31% of all of our grand larcenies. This particular type of criminal seeks out sleeping passengers and then uses a razor blade to cut the victim's pockets and remove the property. This was the case last week when Transit Bureau officers Sergeant Kurt Lewis, Detective Stephen Martinez, observed an individual going through the pockets of a sleeping rider at the 7th Avenue station on the N line in Manhattan. The officers quickly apprehended the man who had a razor blade in his possession. That arrestee has 26 prior arrests, which include 2 for robbery, 6 for larcenies, all from 6 larcenies from victims who were sleeping at the time. I reported at previous meetings undercover officers riding the trains, standing on the platforms, looking like regular riders as part of our NYPD decoy operation. This program continues, and it's operating in all of our subways. We hear anecdotes of undercover officers reporting that they hear individuals utter comments like, "That may be a decoy." So there is a level of deterrence as a result of the decoys being out there, in addition to the arrests we have. During the month of February, another person was arrested for removing an iPhone from a plainclothes decoy officer at the Times Square station. That offender had been previously arrested 25 times, 7 of which were for robbery. And a third recidivist also chose an undercover decoy officer to steal from. Early this month, on the 1 train, 59th Street, Columbus Circle, Amir Jordan and his young accomplice removed an iPhone from the backpack of a decoy officer. The perpetrator had previously been arrested 6 times, including twice for robbery and once for grand larceny. This year, decoy operations have resulted in 11 arrests and will continue to create a sense of uncertainty in the minds of would-be thieves because the potential victim could be an NYPD officer. Another resource the NYPD is utilizing is the Find My Phone app. It's available for iPhones and iPads. I mention it here because it's important to get the word out regarding this feature and how it helps us track stolen phones. Just last Tuesday, a female was walking down the platform stairs at the High Street station when a male displayed a gun and removed her purse and iPhone. An officer assigned to the 8-4 precinct responded and learned from the victim that an iPhone was stolen. Once again, the Find My Phone app was successfully utilized to track the phone and the thief to 111 Bridge Street, where the perp, Brian Mack, was apprehended and identified as the robber. Similar to other offenders, some of our other offenders they just spoke about, he's well known to the Transit Bureau officers. He's been arrested 11 times, including 5 grand larcenies. This example shows the software technology that's there to assist us in making apprehensions if the feature is fully enabled by the phone's owner. So again, we see why increasing awareness is so important. Camera technology, which I think was mentioned here last month, has also assisted us in making apprehensions and provides us with strong evidence in the prosecution. On the morning of March 21st, a female passenger was the victim of an assault and robbery of her phone. The entire incident was captured on closed-circuit TV. And some quick-thinking transit officers, Officers Scott, Longmaid, Yang Ping, Zhang, and Russell Murphy, all assigned to the station, responded to the commotion, apprehended the perp, and assisted the victim. This perp was previously arrested 8 times as well. There's the person who was killed Friday night. I know it's been reported in the papers and in the media. It's quite a tragedy. We're working very hard. As you know, his name is Joshua Basin, the victim, and we're doing all we can. There's a high amount of effort from the Detective Bureau and all units in the NYPD. We have officers out there last night and the night before, Transit Bureau officers at any of the stations that we think there may be witnesses, handing out flyers and soliciting people's input. And it's been given the video and a still, I believe, has been given to the media. And we just encourage anyone who still of a person of interest, somebody that we'd like to speak with, has any information, please report that to us. Thank you, Chair Loda, President Prendergast, and the whole team, Mark, and the MTA board members, and any suggestions or questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you, Joe. Questions for Chief Fox?
Yes, Chief. I was wondering, I heard you mention that a number of these crimes were committed by people who were multiple offenders. Has there been any discussion about seeking orders of protection that would essentially ban people from coming into the system if they were convicted of a crime against a person or for stealing property from one of our passengers? A lot of department stores and shopping malls do that, and essentially they could be arrested for criminal contempt for just coming into the system after such an order of protection was issued.
That's a great question and a great point, and we do have a parole stipulation program where, as part of certain offenders, as part of their parole, there's a stipulation that they can't be seen in the subway system, and we do a lot to track those, and we look at that on a regular basis, and then when the person is paroled and released, we get that information out, and we have some instances of success where people have been taken into custody just for being on the transit system, but it's something we've done and we'll continue to look at closer.
I think perhaps we ought to look at legislative remedy there to require the district attorneys to do that.
We should, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'll work with the NYPD, with Chief Fox and Commissioner Kelly, and then also with the 5 district attorneys, because it'll require their help in this regard.
Chuck?
As a footnote to Chief Fox's point and to Chairman Loder's, would it be possible to ask the Inspector General, who interfaces with the 5 district attorneys, to start getting some data on prosecution? You can do all the arrests in the world, but when the guy gets a walk at the other end in the courthouse, it hasn't done a damn bit of good. Now, my inquiry in at least one county shows that there are no separate statistics maintained for the arrests done in that county and the prosecutions by the district attorneys of those counties. I think it's time for them to start to be accountable, to tell us what have they done to prosecute these people. You cannot hope to have subway crime defeated unless they are prosecuted and prosecuted effectively. And it seems to me the statistics ought to be gathered on what they have done.
Chief, I have a amateur suggestion for you. One of the other things that I do as additional unpaid public service is the Fortune Society. Fortune Society, as you know, takes people who are out of prison and tries to help them stay out of prison. And there are a lot of programs there, drugs, anti-drugs, anti-alcohol, and we've just started a program, how to stop doing what you were doing in the past. If we can help with any of these ex-offenders who get out of jail so that they don't continue to repeat themselves, this is what we do at the Fortune Society. So if you want to send some of them to us so that they don't come back in the system, feel free to do it.
Mark, that's an excellent point that I'll remember and consider, and that's one of the things in working with the district attorneys. I know some of them have, look at that segment, those that can be rehabilitated, and I'll work that into my conversations with the DAs as your point is well taken as well, Chuck.
All right, for everybody who's still awake, we're now going to turn to finance.
Preliminary January 2012 fare box revenue was $291.4 million, $1.9 million or 0.7% below budget. The average non-student fare in January 2012 was $1.64. In constant 1996 dollars, the January average fare fell from $1.39 in 1996 to $1.09 in 2012. Preliminary January 2012 operating expenses before depreciation and OPEB exceeded budget by $4.8 million. Labor expenses were over by $4 million, due mostly to the higher overtime expenses, which I highlighted in the operations report that I spoke for Carmen about earlier. Non-labor expenses exceeded budget by a net $0.7 million or 0.5%. Ridership, January 2012 ridership totaled 186.8 million, 0.8% below budget. Average weekday subway ridership was 5.1 million, an increase of 4.5% from January 2011. This was the first January with average weekday subway ridership over 5 million in 45 years.
Did you hear that? 45 years record we broke for weekday average subway ridership. Biggest in more than 45 years.
January 2012 average weekday local bus ridership was 2 million, an increase of 5.7% from January 2011. If adjusted for the extreme winter weather in 2011, where bus ridership was lower, bus ridership would have actually had a small decrease. In January 2012, average weekday express bus ridership was 42,000, an increase of 7%. Adjusted for weather, it was an increase of 1.4%. January 2012, average weekday paratransit ridership was 29,000, an increase of 26% from January 2011. But once again, the January 2011 numbers were low because there were many days of suspension due to the winter storms. An early look at preliminary February 2012 financial results. The preliminary February 2012 total fare box revenue was $0.5 million above budget. Preliminary February 2012 operating expenses were favorable to budget by $16.2 million, due primarily to the favorable timing of several non-labor expenses, partly offset by higher labor expenses due largely to the impact of reimbursable underruns.
Thank you. And for capital program, may I introduce to you Seymour Portes. Welcome, sir, to the New York City Transit Authority.
Thank you. Fred Smith is not in today. I'm reporting on his behalf. Looking at capital program result, commitment during January 2012 totaled $227.9 million, including the replacement of underground subway track panels, mainline switches, and installation of continuous welded rail throughout the subway system as part of the 2012 track and switch replacement program. The rehabilitation of deteriorated dock bank and installation of new negative cabling between north of Grand Central to south of Vernon Jackson on Flushing 7 line. And the replacement of selected automated fare control equipment on all New York City Transit buses. Meanwhile, January completion totaled $124.8 million, including the purchase of 90 express buses, 2 line structures overcoat painting project on the Astoria and the Flushing line in Queens, and 4 projects as part of the 2011 track and switch reconstruction program. I wanted to add, as this morning, the southbound platform, the northbound platform at Bleecker Street was open to our customers, and the transfer will be done by the June-July of this year, between Lex and the IND. Thank you.
And are we ready for procurement, Steve? Where are you? Oh, there you are.
Good morning. The procurement package this month.
Do you have any procurements this month?
Just a few. Yes. The procurement package this month, which presents both New York City Transit and MTACC procurements, includes 8 actions totaling $606.6 million in expenditures. I would like to highlight the procurement action for the purchase of 300 new B-Division subway cars from Bombardier Transit Corporation in the amount of $599,473,746. These cars will replace the R32 and R42 fleets, which are more than 50 years old and well beyond their useful lives. The procurement was conducted as a federally funded competitive request for proposal, and we received proposals from 2 competitors, Bombardier and Alscar, a limited liability company made up of 2 experienced car builders, Alstom Transportation, Inc. and Kawasaki Railcar, Inc. Negotiations were conducted with both proposers and resulted in significant reductions to their initial proposals. Best and final offers were received from both proposers. Alscar's BAFO was $657 million, and Bombardier's BAFO was $599.5 million. Bombardier's BAFO is $57.5 million lower than Alscar's BAFO. The selection committee unanimously determined that Bombardier's acceptable technical proposal and significantly lower price provided the best overall value to New York City Transit. All car production, including manufacture of the car shells, will be performed in Bombardier's Plattsburgh, New York facility. The delivery schedule will result in the first test train being delivered in the 4th quarter of 2014, followed by delivery of production cars beginning in the 2nd quarter of 2015 and completing in the 4th quarter of 2016.
So
So, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So, if the substantial delivery of the R179s is not until 2015, that means the C and the J, Z lines are going to continue to have the equipment they have, or will other equipment be moved up earlier than 2015 as a temporary measure, because obviously those cars are getting more and more expensive to maintain, the 32s and the 42s.
We have no other cars to put there, so I mean they're basically going to remain there. But what we do with the 32s, there's an air conditioning issue with the 32s, and it's better if they run part of their run outdoors, because there's a long explanation technically, but when pressure levels get to be a certain point, and temperatures in the tunnels do get hot because we don't have normal ventilation other than the subway grate. We'll move those around. And while we won't do a major overhaul on the cars, is whatever we do need to do to make them safe and reliable enough to run in service, we'll make those expenditures.
Mr. Chairman, I have repeatedly made, perhaps to the point of boredom, the point that for the last several decades, 2 and perhaps 3 companies have had virtually all of the work in the construction of cars: Kawasaki, Bombardier, and sometimes also. As I understand it, only that trio bid on this $750 million total, as it ultimately is, or $500 million total of construction. I have 3 points in that regard. Number one, I think we have to open up competition. There are loads of other people who could be invited in, but when they see the fact that over 2 decades, these folks have had a position where they've been successful, I wonder if they're being deterred.
As I recall, there were 8 companies that picked up and paid for the bidding package. Weren't there 9? And what happened to the other 6? They didn't feel that they could compete?
There was only one other car builder that picked up the package. It was Rotem, and the others were subcontractors, major subs.
All right. And you have Samsung, you have the 2 Chinese companies, the Polish company. All of those are in a position. My point in it is not to criticize the people who have done this, because we need these cars. But it seems to me that in the future we have got to open up the process by affirmatively soliciting those who have the capacity to do it in order to stimulate competition. Number 2, I've made the point, and I am assured that it has been dealt with here, that there are provisions made in this context so ensure that proprietary software rights will be dealt with in terms of licensing at an appropriate juncture. And number 3, I am told that there was some effort to reach out by Bob Bergen, but it seems to me we've got to do everything we can to get more competition. When you have 3 companies for decades having the lock, if you will, on subway and train cars, something is terribly wrong. That's my only point.
I'd like to respond to all 3 of your items. First of all, this procurement was started quite a while ago in terms of when its initial process of reaching out, which we did do. Since the dialogue that's been held at this board by you and others about trying to increase competition, we have let people know in our next procurement, the R211, we're looking for additional proposers. I would like to say, though, that there's a point past which competition works against you in terms of, especially for the 3 companies that are here that have made investments in New York plants, in areas. We've got Kawasaki in Yonkers, Alstom in Hornell, and Bombardier in Plattsburgh. Bombardier now does, they're proposing in this particular order to do even the car shell manufacture in Plattsburgh, whereas before they did it up at La Pocatière in Quebec. But we have talked to a number of other major car vendors with respect to their interest, car builders, of participating in the R211. And they've been very frank with us. While they're interested in having a dialogue with us, it's a matter of where they put their investment in terms of getting a return on it, especially in relation to other places where they do have plants and they have the ability to more competitively price vehicles in those locations, like California, for example. Because just about everybody now is looking for some level of content locally for having that work done. But we will certainly do that. We will also insist from this point forward that we have rights with respect to, we're never going to get manufacturing drawings from people, but we'll get drawings with respect to parts so that we can go solicit our own. But I would like to say, I mean, there's some car manufacturers you yourself know. If people buy a BMW or people buy a Mercedes-Benz, they generally don't go to Pep Boys to buy parts. They generally go back to the original manufacturer because the warranty is related to it, and there's a very high warranty provision in a lot of these contracts. And I would like to say the 160s are the highest performing right now. The last couple of car buys we've had are not only some of the most competitively priced vehicles in the United States and in North America, they're also some of the highest reliability cars the industry has ever seen. I believe the 160s are over 700,000 miles right now, which is almost unheard of. And so there's a trade-off with respect to, we certainly have to have competition. We definitely need to have competition, but we don't do it at we don't want to do it at the expense of reliability or an ability to have a sound market here in terms of manufacturers.
I congratulate you and your colleagues for doing this. My point is, we've got to do it across the board. So, for example, on the cars bought from Kawasaki and that are being delivered now, the M8s, I believe, those are being done in either Lincoln, Nebraska, or in Kobe, Japan. My point is, we have got to be sure that we do everything we can, and I know that you will do it. I have no doubt about it. I just want to reinforce it, that A, we stimulate competition, and B, that we stimulate the construction of vehicles and whatever else has to be done in the state of New York, consistent with the governor's agenda.
All right, is there a motion to approve the procurement?
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? They carry. Do we have a special report, or is we just referring to the one
to
at...
the ones in the
all right,
package.
in 6.5 through 13 is the safety report. Please take a look at it. Are we ready for Michael? You ready, sir?
Ready to go.
We got any key projects underway in the system?
Actually, minor stuff.
Oh, okay. What are they?
I'm just going to update you a bit on the projects, and I figured out that a picture sometimes it's worth 1,000 words. Fulton Street Transit Center, it's progressing. This is a picture from above, taken just currently. If you go inside, you're going to start seeing the parasols that are redirecting the light from outside into the well. And actually, this is how it looks from below. And if you do go there during the day, actually you get daylight, and it's without having any, it's just artificial light there. This is I call it the DNA stairway. It is a stair that wraps around. It was going to be a glass elevator that will go to the retail level. The preparation on finishing the Day Street entry point is going on, and we expect opening this summer. And I think that's about as much as I'm going to say about the Fulton Street. One other thing, we have actually the Corbin building that is over 120 years old is not right now in the process of being refurbished, and probably in the next month or so we're going to cut in the air conditioning, central air conditioning, to a 120-year-old building. So that's pretty much what we're going to do there. I wanted to talk about the number 7 a little more extensively because there's a lot of work progressing there. I just give you an overview where we are getting to, and the running tunnel and the station structures are actually being completed, and we expect substantial completion this month. This is a view of the platform level looking north. This is the upper level, the mezzanine again, and the work is being completed. The running tunnels, this is actually at the end of February again. This is work that has been completed. Site A, that we made it part of this first contract. At this point, just to orient you, it's between 25th and 26th and 11th Avenue.
Just shows you just a description of how the flow, because it's coming from below, the airflow, and this is going to be incorporated. This is how it looks right now. We finished basically the shaft. What you see there at the top is actually the form that we use that, and the work is being completed, and we expect to finish the building. Okay, that will be as part of the finishes contract that will be done, and this building will then be incorporated with the developer building. So that's kind of a picture of how it's going to look when we're done. Site J, that is the main entrance to the project. Again, just for orientation purposes, shows you 33rd, 34th, and again, we are looking at 11th Avenue. This is how the site looks when one views from above looking west. The two shafts are going down. You'll see there, and that whole area is being concreted, and there's a lot of additional work being done. When finished, on this side, we're going to have the park with the main entry point, and on the other side, you can see at the corner, this is our vent building that's going to be, in effect, incorporated in a developer site. We provided caissons to a potential 100-floor residential building on the site. So that's been provided, so there is a possibility of support, and that's this is the structural completion is December 2012.
Do we maintain that park, or does somebody else maintain
Somebody
that?
else.
Somebody else. Okay.
Right. Site P, this is a site that we just had a bid opening, and the bid opening came in $10 million below our estimate. So that's good news. And this is basically not much to show.
That means you rejected it?
Yeah, right. We immediately just said, here is the paper, sign it, right? So we're going to, in effect, be able to award it in June 2014. Site K, core and shell contract, was awarded in February 11, and it's proceeding extremely well. Actually, we believe we're going to get done with that ahead of schedule. Again, we hope to finish it this year. This is a event plan. 36th Street is right to the right of this building, and then you can see 36 has been demolished, will be reconstructed, as well as we're building a structure under 11th Avenue, and half of it has been done, the next half will be done. That kind of gives you a pictorial, and again, when done, it will be again incorporated into another building. So just so everyone understands, all of our facilities have right now a cladding. That cladding, the developers have the right to, in effect, change it to make it look more compatible with what they have.
What is a cladding?
Just the facade will be behind, the skin of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Site L, that is actually next to a related on 41st. Again, this is the site. We have a building just next to us, and the work is proceeding well on time. This is kind of how it will look when we are done. And we are actually, a lot of these facilities are very much needed so that the system contractor can get in. So we have very specific dates that we turn it over to the system contractor, and they need to do that. The building that you see behind is the building that is there now. We're just going to finish our building. And this is the structural completion is August 2012. The finishes and systems is the contract that is probably right now becoming the most significant one. It's over $500 million. We finished all the inverts. We are now pouring the benches, about 50% in the tunnels that were done. And I would say that that's about where we are now. I just wanted to give you a brief status, December 2010, December 2011, and when we're going to be December 2012. We still had 2 in-design system finishes in the secondary at the end of 2010. At the end of 11, those were done. So in effect, we have no more design work. We're done with design. And in fact, in procurement, we had at that point, in 10, we had Site K that actually turns into construction and will probably be complete before the end of this year. And then we have the Site P that was just, in fact, awarded, and you'll see it at the bottom, as well as system finishes that were done. You see the system finishes here, and that will continue. So that kind of gives one a picture of where we are with the projects. What's interesting here is I felt to give you a budget status. At this point, in the base construction contract, we actually awarded $1.972 billion worth of work, and we had a contingency of $104 million. Right now, with 64% of the construction done, we spend 1% of the contingency, just under $1 million. So actually, this is we were very proud of it. We were able to manage that on a very large construction contract. Thank you for this one, and let's go to Second Avenue.
You know, this is very bad for your reputation.
I know.
Stay ahead of schedule and under
Well,
budget.
I'm sure that we will have some problems going forward. So,
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to Second Avenue,
excuse me.
I have a question.
Yes.
Circling back to the park at between 33rd and 34th Streets.
Right.
You had mentioned, I think, Mike, that somebody else would be responsible for maintaining that park. Who is that somebody else?
It is my understanding that, well, that is going to be built by HYDC, the park. We are right now providing for the park the underground structural support. Actually, we're asked to do it because we are there. And my understanding is that the city will undertake that in the future. It's not us. It could be the developer. I don't really know, but I know for a fact we are not the one.
Okay.
This is part of the boulevard that is going to go between 11th and 10th in a diagonal way, and all of the development along. So if this is part of the development deal or not, I don't know.
So by the time we turn the key, we will know who exactly is responsible for maintaining that park?
I'm assuming that will be the case, yes.
Thank you.
Do we know if the developer of Hudson Yards has closed yet?
I will hedge to say no, they did not.
They have not.
That's what I know right now. Second Avenue Subway, 72nd Street Cavern is proceeding well. About 72% of all the excavation is done. We expect to finish the majority of the cavern excavation by May, so that's kind of good news. We'll have some additional blasting going on into the ancillary facility shafts that are going to be there. The western tunnel actually has been, both tunnels have been, whatever the contract calls for, western and eastern, have been concreted. One is 100%, I think the other one is 98%. This is the eastern tunnel going, in effect, this is looking north, but if you are sitting here and you look the other way, you are in the Y area where we expect to have the future tunnel for the tube that goes downtown. It's just on the opposite wall. And here we are actually having the various concrete pours in place. We are putting new mug houses along 2nd Avenue at 87, 86, and I think is 84, 83rd. And this will be there in order to handle the again the excavation at the new cavern, 86th Street. The one that we have in the 70s will continue to be there until the end of the contract, and that is November 2013. And these are being added. There are different technology. We're having scrubbers here. Everything is kind of different here. They're going to be shorter. In some instances, although the majority of the building is 16 feet away, the first, or actually the second floor terraces are almost 5 feet away from our structure. So that's going to be potentially an impact. But again, we are making sure that we are providing separations, and the fact that the technology really includes scrubbers will make a difference. Up in the 90s, we shifted traffic from east to west, so we can start actually the slurry wall construction on the east side in order to complete the cavern. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else have anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Don't go too far. We're going to go right into bus. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.